Do you know which is the birthplace of democracy and the idea that all citizens should have a voice in governing their society? Athens is the birthplace democracy and the idea that all citizens should have a voice in governing their society. Athens, modern Greek Atheni, ancient Greek Atheni, historic city and capital of Greece. Many of classical civilization's intellectual and artistic ideas originated there, and the city is generally considered to be the birthplace of Western civilization. Athens lies 5 miles, 8 kilometers, from the Bay of Phaleron, an inlet of the Aegean Sea where Piraeus, the port of Athens, is situated in a mountain-girt arid basin divided north-south by a line of hills. Greater Athens has an area of 165 square miles, 427 square km. The Kiphisos River, only a trickle in summer, flows through the western half. The Ilissos River, often dry, traverses the eastern half. The surrounding mountains, Pernis, 4,636 feet, 1,413 meters. Pentelicus, Pendali, 3,631 feet. Hymettos, Emetos, 3,365 feet. And Adelion, 1,535 feet, add to the impression of barrenness. Yet such considerations are superficial when compared with the fecundity of Athens' bequests to the world, such as its philosophy, its architecture, its literature, and its political ideals. For treatment of the city in its regional setting, see Greece. Historical and cultural aspects are treated further in the article Ancient Greek Civilization. Character of the city. Athens, with its tall buildings and contemporary shops, is the first European city when approached from the Middle East. When approached from the West, from elsewhere in Europe, what strikes the visitor is the influence of the East, in the food, music, and clamorous street life, perhaps vestiges of a time when Athens was divorced from European society under the yoke of Ottoman rule. Nevertheless, it is wrong to say that Athens is a mixture of East and West. It is Greek and more particularly Athenian. The city, after all, nurtured Western civilization thousands of years ago. Athens remains on the world stage to this day. Notably, in 2004, the world came to the city for the Olympic Games, which spurred a dramatic makeover for Athens. In addition to building a raft of new sports venues and facilities, including a stadium designed by Santiago Calatrava, Athens undertook massive transportation infrastructure improvements that included dramatic expansion of public transportation and the construction of a new international airport. Some 3 centuries after the death of Pericles, 429 BCE, Athenians entered upon a period of bondage that lasted almost 2,000 years. The city was freed in 1833, and in the following 170 years, it was the scene of more than a dozen revolutions, another brutal foreign occupation, and a civil war of a special savagery. This long history of passion and suffering has had considerable effect on the Athenian character. The core of that character is an implacable will to survive, buttressed by a profound sense of loyalty, especially to the family, and patriotism. The Greek Orthodox Church, which is directed by a synod sitting in Athens, was a main force in keeping alive the Greek language, tradition, and literature when such things were forbidden, and most people still support it. The millennia of oppression, instead of driving the Athenians into obtuse moroseness, have honed their wit and rendered them tough but supple, while centuries of privation have only preserved their warmth and generosity. The long oral tradition, alive even under the invader, has reflected and stimulated a taste for rich talk. Of course, the poetic impulse to make a good story better leads to considerable exaggeration in daily conversation, suiting a vanity that goes with a sharp-edged sense of personal and family honor, and the spoiling of children. The ancient heroes, too, were vain about both themselves and honor, boasting as much about outwitting the enemy as about outfighting him. Climate. The climate of Athens is benign. Frost is rare. The minimum temperature is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, or 0 degrees Celsius, and snow seldom lies, while the summers, though hot, maximum temperature is 99 degrees Fahrenheit, or 37 degrees Celsius, are dry, and a fresh northeasterly wind often blows by day. The nights are cool. The climate of the city permits outdoor activity the year round and has had an important effect on both the style of architecture and the life and political institutions of the city. Traditional features. The older Athens has not entirely disappeared in all this hubbub. Older men may have given up smoking hookahs and shadowy cafes, but not their 33-bead kambouloy, worry beads, which were acquired from the Turks. Old Athens occupies the 6 streets sidling off Monastirki Square by the excavated agora. Tiny open-fronted shops are hung with tinselled folk costumes, and all of the monuments of Athens reproduced in copper, plaster, plastic, and paint. There is an alley of antique dealers, a street of smithies, one of hardware merchants, and another of wildly assorted miscellany. Close to this lively quarter is the Pleka, on the north slope of the Acropolis. Small one-story houses, dating from about the time of independence, are clustered together up the hillside in peasant simplicity. There are appropriately tiny squares with tavernas, once celebrated for their folk music, dancing, and simple fare. There are vine-covered pergolas and some unpaved streets, too narrow for cars. The baths built by the Turks still function morning and afternoon, but the bouzouki, a local relative of the lute, is giving way to the electric guitar. The taverna signs are multilingual, and the ubiquitous kitchen chair is being replaced by the plastic-ribbed restaurant seat. Progress laps at the Pleka like a vengeful sea, but the Acropolis is just up above, just under the stars. The population of Greater Athens increased considerably after the War of Independence in the early 1830s. The rapid growth was largely attributable to the great influx of refugees from Asia Minor in the early 1920s and the migration of rural inhabitants from the provinces during World War II and the Communist Rebellion, 1946–49. By the 1960s, Athens had become a bustling cosmopolitan city. Almost all Greeks adhere to the Eastern, Greek, Orthodox faith. If you like this video, give a thumb up and do subscribe this channel for more.